Hello viewers, today we shall be further doing the amendments to the FEMA 2000. This is in continuation with the earlier session on FEMA 2000 unit 6th. To start with, we shall be discussing the transactions which are regulated by the exchange control. Transactions having international financial implication matters are regulated by the exchange control, which includes purchase and sale of and other dealings in foreign exchange and maintenance of balances at foreign centers, procedures for realization of proceeds of exports, payment to non-residents or to their accounts in India, transfer of securities between residents and non-residents, and acquisition and holding of foreign securities, foreign travel with exchange, export and import of currency, checks, drafts, traveller checks and other financial instruments, securities, etc. Activities in India of branches of foreign firms and companies and foreign nationals, foreign direct investment and portfolio investment in India, including investment by non-resident Indian nationals, persons of Indian origin and corporate bodies predominantly owned by such persons, appointment of non-residents and foreign nationals and foreign companies as agents in India, setting up of joint ventures, subsidiaries outside India by Indian companies, acquisition, holding and disposal of immovable property in India by foreign nationals and foreign companies, acquisition, holding and disposal of immovable property outside India by Indian nationals resident in India. Now, let us discuss all the sections one by one. Section 7, which deals with export of goods and services. Every exporter is required to furnish to the RBI or any other authority a declaration etc. regarding full export value. Section 8 and Section 9, they cast the responsibility on the persons resident in India who have any amount of foreign exchange due or accrued in their favour to get the same realized and repatriated to India within the specific period and manner specified by RBI. Section 10 and Section 12 deals with duties and liabilities of the authorized person, authorized dealer, money changer, offshore banking unit or any other person for the time being authorized to deal in foreign exchange or foreign securities. So, under all these sections, section 7 to section 12, there are the restrictions in which the declaration needs to be made by the person whosoever is dealing in foreign exchange, whether it be an exporter or he is a person who is going to get his money repatriated from India, or he is a person who is an authorized person who is dealer in foreign exchange or a money changer or offshore banking unit. Now, let us discuss the duties of an authorized person. The authorized person is supposed to comply with the Reserve Bank of India directions, not to engage in an unauthorized transaction, ensure compliance of Foreign Exchange Management Act provisions, to produce the books, accounts, etc., whensoever he is indicated to do so. Let us know about the powers of an authorized person. The authorized person is supposed to deal in or transfer any foreign exchange. He can receive payment by order. He can open NRO, NRE, FCNR, NRNR and NRSR accounts. All these accounts are the non-resident accounts in India, whether they are exchange accounts, repatriation accounts or foreign accounts, to sell or purchase foreign exchange for current account transactions, to sell or purchase foreign exchange for permissible capital account transactions. Powers of the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India is empowered to verify the correctness of any statements, information or particulars. Obtaining information which such authorized person has failed to furnish, securing compliance with the provisions of the Act. Therefore, Reserve Bank of India is the apex body which is supposed to verify the correctness for whatever information has been furnished by the people who have been dealing with the foreign exchange. In case they have hidden any kind of information, then the same can be obtained by the Reserve Bank of India on their failure to do so, and they can also secure compliance with the provisions of the Act. Section 13. Any contravention under FEMA may invite following kinds of penalties. In case a person who is dealing in the foreign exchange has failed to comply with the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Management Act, then the same shall be met with penalties. Firstly, if the amount against which offence is quantified, then penalty will be thrice the sum involved in the contravention. Secondly, where the amount cannot be quantified, the penalty may be imposed up to rupees 2 lakhs. If the contravention is continuing every day, then a further penalty amount of rupees 5,000 for every day for the first day during which the contravention continues shall be charged. Further, in addition to the penalty, any currency, security or other money or property involved in the contravention may also be confiscated. Therefore, the penalty will be thrice in case the amount is quantified. In case the amount is not quantified, then it shall be up to rupees 2 lakhs. In case the default is a continuing one, then rupees 5,000 shall be charged from the first day of the contravention, and so on. Section 14. If a person fails to make full payment of the penalty imposed within a period of 90 days, he shall be liable to civil imprisonment. Section 15 empowers the Directorate of Enforcement and officers of the Reserve Bank of India as may be authorized by the central government in this behalf to compound the offences. Therefore, Section 14 speaks of the liability of the person to civil imprisonment in case he has not rectified his mistake within 90 days, whereas Section 15 empowers the Directorate of Enforcement and officers of the Reserve Bank of India and as may be authorized by the central government to compound the offences. Section 16, it empowers the central government to appoint there as many adjudicating authorities as it may think fit for holding inquiries. Section 17 empowers the central government to appoint one or more special directors to hear the appeals against the orders of the adjudicating authorities. So, all these are administrative sections in which the adjudicating authorities, if they feel fit, then they can appoint more persons. Also, it empowers the central government to appoint more special directors to hear the appeals against the orders of the adjudicating authorities. Now, let us talk about Section 18, which empowers the central government to establish appellate tribunal to hear the appeals against the orders of adjudicating authorities and special directors. And similarly, Section 19 makes provisions as regards appeals to the appellate tribunal. Section 20 talks about the composition of the appellate tribunal. So, Section 18, 19 and 20 talk about the establishment of appellate tribunal. Also, it talks about how the appeals can be made to the appellate tribunal and the composition of the appellate tribunal. Section 21, it talks about the qualifications for appointment of chairperson, member and special director. Section 22 talks about the term of office, whereas Section 23 talks about the terms and conditions of service. Section 24 talks about the vacancies. A detailed discussion regarding all the section can be had from the Bear Act relating to FEMA 2000. Section 25 deals with resignation and removal. Section 26, members to act as chairperson in certain circumstances. Section 27 deals with staff of appellate tribunal and special directorate. Section 28 talks about the power of appellate tribunal and special director. Section 29, distribution of business among the benches, and section 30, power of the chairperson to transfer the cases. Section 31 talks about the decision of the tribunal that shall be taken by the majority. Section 32 talks about right of appellant to take assistance of legal practitioner or a chartered accountant and of government to appoint presenting officer. Section 33 tells us about the members etc. to be public servants. Section 34, civil court not to have the jurisdiction, and section 35 talks about the appeal that can be made to the High Court. Then there is section 36 to 38, the Directorate of Enforcement. Enforcement of the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Management Act and prevents leakage of foreign exchange. Remittances of Indians abroad otherwise than through normal banking channels, that is through compensatory payments. Acquisition of foreign currency illegally by persons in India. Non-repatriation of the proceeds of exported goods. Unauthorized maintenance of accounts in foreign countries. Siphoning off of foreign exchange against fictitious and bogus imports and by illegal acquisition of foreign exchange through the Hawala transaction. Thereby these sections, that is section 35 to section 38, deal with all such transaction whereby the normal means of siphoning or sending the funds is not done, but illegally the foreign exchange is sent to India. Dealing in foreign exchange. Section 3 of FEMA imposes restrictions on dealings in foreign exchange and foreign security and payments to and receipts from any person outside India. Accordingly, except as provided in the terms of the Act or with general or special permission of the Reserve Bank of India, no person shall deal in any foreign exchange or security with any person other than an authorized person, make any payment to or for the credit of any person resident outside India in any manner, receive otherwise or through an authorized person any payment by order or on behalf of any person resident outside India in any manner. Enter into any financial transaction in India as a consideration for or in association with acquisition or creation or transfer of a right to acquire any asset outside India by any person. Further, save as otherwise provided in this Act, no person resident in India shall acquire, hold, own, possess or transfer any foreign exchange, foreign security or any immovable property situated outside India. Therefore, so to say, the Foreign Exchange Management Act imposes restrictions of a person directly receiving payment, sending payment, acquiring an asset or creation of an asset or liability without the foretold mechanism under the FEMA Act 2000. Now, let us learn about the current account transactions. FEMA permits dealings in foreign exchange through authorized persons for current account transactions. However, central government with consultation of Reserve Bank of India can impose reasonable restrictions in public interest. Some examples of current account transactions are cited. Number 1, payment for imports of goods. Secondly, booking with airlines, shipping, etc. capital account transactions. Any person may sell or draw foreign exchange to or from an authorized person for a capital account transaction as permitted by the Reserve Bank of India in consultation with the central government. The Reserve Bank of India may, however, without any prejudice to the generality of this, prohibit, restrict or regulate the following. Number 1. Transfer or issue of any foreign security by a person resident of India. Transfer or issue of any security by a person resident outside India. Transfer or issue of any security or foreign security by any branch, office or agency in India of a person resident outside India. Any borrowing or lending in foreign exchange in whatever form or by whatever name called. Deposits between person resident in India and person resident outside India. Import, export or holding of currency or currency notes, etc. Therefore, there is a regulation related to the sending or dealing of foreign exchange by a person who is resident in India, a person who is resident outside India, transfer of issue of security of a person who is resident in India through any branch, office or agency in India, any borrowing or lending in foreign exchange in whatever form by whatever name called, deposits between person resident in India and a person resident outside India, and also the import and export or holding of currency or currency notes, etc. A person who is resident in India may hold, own, transfer or invest in foreign currency, foreign security or any immovable property situated outside India if such currency, security or property was acquired, held or owned by such person when he was resident outside India or inherited from a person who was a resident outside India. Therefore, a person who is resident in India can hold or acquire the property if it was acquired either through inheritance or gift from a person who is resident outside India, or while this person who is resident in India had acquired it while he was outside India. A person who is resident outside India can vice versa hold, own, transfer or invest in Indian currency, security or any immovable property situated in India if such currency, security or property was acquired, held or owned by such person when he was resident in India or inherited from a person who was resident in India. So, this is exactly the reverse of the situation of a person who was resident in India. The same way, the person who is resident outside India can invest, acquire or purchase a property while he was in India. The Reserve Bank of India is empowered by this Act to prohibit, restrict or regulate establishment in India of a branch, office or other place of business by a person resident outside India for carrying on any activity related to such branch, office or other place of business. However, the Reserve Bank of India shall not impose any restriction on the drawal of foreign exchange for payments due on account of amortization of loans or for depreciation of direct investments in the ordinary course of business. Therefore, it transpires that there are two golden rules of FEMA. Firstly, that all current account transactions are permitted, otherwise that they are prohibited, and secondly, all capital transactions will be prohibited unless otherwise they are permitted. Now, let us know about the administration of the Act. The rules, regulations and norms pertaining to several sections of the Act are to be laid down by the Reserve Bank of India in consultation with the central government. The Act requires that central government to appoint as many officers of the central government as adjudicating authorities for holding inquiries pertaining to the contravention of the Act. There is also a provision for appointing one or more special director of appeals to hear their appeals against the order of the adjudicating authorities. The central government shall also establish an appellate tribunal for foreign exchange to hear appeals against the orders of the adjudicating authorities and the special director of appeals. The FEMA provides for the establishment by the central government of a director of enforcement with the director and such other officers or class of officers as it thinks fit for taking up for investigation of the contravention under this Act. FEMA head office, also known as the Directorate of Enforcement, is situated in New Delhi and is headed by a director. The directorate is further divided into 5 zonal offices at Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata and Jalandhar, and each office is headed by a deputy director. Each zone is further divided into 7 sub-zonal offices headed by the assistant directors and 5 field units headed by the chief enforcement officers. So, this is the entire way and schema of enforcement of the provisions of the FEMA 2000 Act by having a 3-tier system in it also, wherein we have the head office, then we have the zonal offices and also the sub-zonal offices at the various cities. Now, let us compare the FEMA and the FERA. There is a contrast and comparison between both the Act, as the FEMA Act has replaced the FERA Act. The objective of FERA was to conserve foreign exchange and to prevent its misuse, whereas the object of FEMA is to facilitate external trade and payments and maintenance of foreign exchange market in India. Violation of FERA was a criminal offence, whereas violation of FEMA is a civil offence. Offences under FERA were not compoundable, whereas offences under FEMA are compoundable. FERA was a draconian and obnoxious law, whereas FEMA is a civil law. Therefore, with a pro-liberalized India, it is very much clear that FEMA is liberalized, unlike its earlier counterpart FERA, which aimed at restricting the foreign exchange between the two nations or between India and various other nations, whereas FEMA promotes a healthy competition and promotion of foreign exchange and promoting earning through the foreign exchange mechanism. In our session today, we discussed all the sections from section 6 to section 38 and section 49 dealing with the administration portion of FEMA 2000 Act. Also, we discussed various restrictions related to the capital account transactions and the current account transaction. Certain transactions which were totally prohibited were also discussed. Then we had a comparison between the FERA and the FEMA Act, and with this we conclude our today's session. Thank you.